time to talk about another um, slightly controversial subject. This time it's party-gyling. This is a topic where I had loads and loads and loads and loads of discussion about on internet forums with home brewers who got completely the wrong idea about it and were convinced that they were right. But obviously I was because I've looked into it properly. Um, right, party-gyling. The common misconception about party-gyling is that you have two or three runnings from one set of ingredients, either from multiple mashes or from sparges, whatever. And that the first one you make a strong beer out of, then the second runnings you make a weaker beer out of, and then the third runnings you make a really watery beer out of. Now, this was a way that they brewed in Britain at one point, but they pretty much stopped this by 1800. This is very much an 18th century method of brewing, and it was partly the porter brewers that did away with this by brewing beers entire gyle, which meant that they, rather than making separate beers from each of the runnings, they combined them all together and made a single beer, and this is what porter often was. Now, when you get through to the 19th century, then party-gyling becomes something different, and it becomes a very, very useful technique. So the thing about party-gyling is, yes, you get two, three, or four different runnings, depending on what your mashing scheme is. And then you hop these and boil them separately, and then you blend them together post-boil. And so this means you have complete control over the original gravity, which was quite important in Britain after 1880, when the tax on beer was based on the original gravity before fermentation. So it was quite good to have complete control over that, so you know how much tax you were paying each time. And so what you do is you get the three worts and then you blend them up and make two, three, four beers even out of them of different strengths. And each of the beers would have each of some of the worts in them because you don't want to have a beer that's just got the later worts because they're not particularly great. And most of the flavor and the goodness is in the first wort. And so what you do is you'd put some of that in every beer and then also some of the weakest worts. One exception might be a very strong beer that was about the same gravity as the first strong wort. You might have pretty much all first wort in that and just a little bit of the later worts just to get the gravity right. But in general, all of the beers would have a mix of all the worts. It's a very flexible technique. It means you can brew several beers of different gravities from the same mash and have complete control over them. It also means that you can brew very small quantities of a beer when you've got a much longer brew length. A good example of this is Fuller's Old Burton Extra, which they brewed in the 20s and 30s. The largest batch I've ever seen of this was 10 barrels, even though their brew length was several hundred barrels. And they could do this because they party-gyled it with their ordinary Burton and with their mild ale. And so it meant that you can brew very small quantities of some beers on very large kit, which can be really useful. And mentioning Fuller's, that's a good one because Fuller's are a brewery that's still party-gyle. And so Chiswick Bitter, London Pride, ESB, Golden Pride, they're all party-gyle together in various different combinations. And it means you use up all the worts, you don't waste any. It's a very, very handy method of brewing and was extremely common in the UK. And there's still a few breweries that do it. I'm sure that some of the older family breweries also party-gyle. My guess is that Harvey's party-gyle some of their beers. It's gone out of fashion because, yeah, I don't know really why. Probably because people aren't brewing multiple bitters that are similar, just varying by the strengths. Yeah, some people try and do this on a homebrew scale. It's probably a bit trickier, but it's an interesting process, and it's a shame that it's so misunderstood and not known very well. Scottish brewers were the worst for this, as I mentioned in my previous talk on Scottish pale ales. They basically party-gyled everything together. So they just have a single recipe and they do four different strength pale ales and a strong ale out of the same mash and the same recipe. So it was a very efficient way for them to work. You could, basically decide exactly what proportion of the different beers you wanted with each brew, and you wouldn't have to mess around with separate recipes and everything like that. So, yeah, well, I hope that's explained it briefly. And yeah, I'll be back again soon with some other topic. And honestly, if you have any suggestions, please mention in the comments and I will try to get to the ones that I think interesting. Bye bye.